SSP guy. Yes, Dan, nothing more blue-collar than scented candles and ginger ale minis. You really can't make this stuff up. I guess we are who we are. I know where I come from, though, and I did come from that. Solid stock. I'm always going to be proud of that. Guardsy comes from solid stock in Iowa, was it?
Yeah. Waverly and Cedar Falls.
Nacho Leber is with
America's heartland is what my dad says.
100%. Sierra Nevada Brewing Company helps bring Ben Leber to you each and every week on the Bumper to Bumper program, and he now joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. A quick aside before we talk Vikings and Arizona Cardinals and any potential Darnold dilemma. I don't know how much of the Buffalo-San Francisco 49ers game you got to watch last night, but I must tell you that I've seen over the years, because I'm old, a lot of cold weather, snowy games on TV. I don't know that I can ever recall a team that seemed to revel in the conditions and frolic in the conditions the way the Buffalo Bills did yesterday on the lake.
Yeah, they were like a bunch of pigs in slop.
Yes.
It was their environment, and they owned it. And that's not always the case. You know, you can prepare for it, you can practice outside and all the other stuff, but it actually is really hard to really test your cleats out and feel confident running around in those conditions, even if you practice like that during the week. But they really did just take it to them. And after, it was like a short time, and you could tell San Francisco did not want to be there, and they were totally out of their element.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of fun to watch.
It was.
Just a decimation. And the Niners got beat in their own sort of rushing attack. I mean, they're normally the ones that's bloodying people's noses, and it was James Cook that was running free down the field every single time I looked up from my phone. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's running free again. So it was fun to watch.
An amazing performance. Did you think yesterday, the game you were at reporting on the sidelines, did you at any point think, oh, they're going to lose this one? You know, the season's not over, but they're not going to win them all. And this was Arizona's getting the better of them. They ain't gonna come back in this one. How close were you to declaring that or thinking it in your mind?
I questioned it a little bit in the fourth quarter, just enough to say to myself, are we really going to lose to the Cardinals? And I'm not trying to say that as if, they have no business beating us. Like, I knew going to the game, this is a pretty talented football team. Like, they're good. You know, they're going to be much better next year, I think, when they get a full year with the new coaching staff. But they have a lot of talented players, and they're like really putting together the last couple of games. So I knew that they were formidable, but I just was like kind of questioning it a little bit. I never really thought they were going to lose, though. And that is the honest to God's truth. I was like, we're going to win this game somehow. I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it was not our type of football for so many quarters that I'm like, something's got to give. Like, we got to get back to what we do. We got to take the ball away at some point in time. And that's really, it kind of happened at the start of the fourth quarter. I mean, right at the fourth quarter is when Murphy picked off the football. And I'm like, okay, we're going to win this game somehow.
They wanted, of course, having to convert on fourth down. I want to play the sound from the fan radio network on the Darnold completion on fourth down in the game-winning drive.
But here it is. This is the game right here. It's nervous time at U.S. Bank Stadium. The Vikings have won 4 consecutive. The Cardinals have won 4 of their last 5. 22-16 Arizona, 4th and 6 from the Cardinals 34. Minnesota 50% on fourth down this season. Ham to the left of Sam Darnold. Jordan Addison in motion to the right. Another blitz. Sam fires, caught! He made the blitzers pay! Justin Jefferson at the 23 rolls ahead to the 21 for a gain of 13 and a first down for the Minnesota Vikings at the 2-minute warning. Arizona leads 22-16. Your Vikings are threatening.
So there you have it. What did you see on that play, and why was JJ that open in that situation? Because it was a good route? Because they were sending extra people? What happened on that play?
Well, it looked like to me, I went back and watched most of the second half, and I was just looking specifically at the Cardinals defense. I'm like, was it something that they were doing, or did we kind of figure out some of their blitz scheme? I mean, the answer is always sort of right in the middle. I think that our blocking schemes got a little bit more polished up, and we weren't kind of making what looked like some mistakes here and there. But I also thought that Arizona got a little antsy in some of their disguises and where they're going pre-snap. They did a really good job in the first half of not tipping off with their safeties or linebackers, or not even just the blitzers, but the coverage guys and where they're rotating. And I thought in the second half, because a little bit of tempo and we were hitting them a little bit and we had the momentum, I felt like their secondary was starting to showcase a little bit where the coverage was going to go. And in that particular play, you could see a little bit of safety movement that it was like, okay, I see what you guys are doing here. And, this is the route we have dialed up. And it just looked like we had a much better understanding pre-snap about what was going to happen, where we did not have that in the first half. And so, once again, they made them pay when they were going to dial up a blitz, and they were playing a zone coverage and not man-to-man, and we found that soft spot, and Sam was on it.
Should the Cardinals have gone for it on, was it 4th and 5, I think, before they ended up settling for another field goal?
Yeah, Chad Abbott and I were talking about that offline during those moments, and I said to him, like, you got to go for this, right? And he's like, yeah, you probably do. Like, if you want to be on the road and, you're kind of in a must-win situation within your own division, I would go for this too. And so we were kind of agreeing that I think the right play here is to go for it. And it seems counterintuitive. It's like, well, take the 6 points and you force them to go down the field and score a touchdown. But it sounds like even on the game broadcast, they were talking, Olsen was talking about 6 points is sort of no man's land. And you got to go for it right there. And I think even the analytics back it up. And the way that their defense was playing, I think, yeah, man, you go for it and you put this game out of reach and you make it a 2-score game and just seal it. I think in hindsight, even in hindsight, or that's at the moment, that's what I was going to think.
Well, one of the interesting points that Olsen made, I thought, was, or this kind of was part of his thinking on why he thought the right thing to do was to go for it, was he thought, look, even if you get stopped, it completely changes the way, at least in his mind, the Vikings approach things offensively, that he didn't think they'd be anywhere near. When you've got to score a touchdown, you've got to score a touchdown, right? And so you're kind of balls out. You got to do what you got to do. Whereas if 3 can tie it, maybe you play a little bit more conservatively, and at worst, it's a tie game, and then you still maybe even have some seconds left to do something with the ball, or you go into OT. Now, the only flaw I saw in that, and you can speak to this better than I, is my gut tells me the O'Connell approach does tend to be, well, no, we're not playing for the 3. We're going to do everything we can to score it, to actually win the game right here. But that was part of his point, was worst case scenario, you get stopped, and they got to start from deep within their own territory, and they're going to play it differently if they know all they need is 3 to keep the game going as opposed to 7 to win it.
Yeah, and I think the one part about that I'll just add in there is once you get across the 50 and you get into that field goal range, then when you need to score a touchdown, you're automatically getting yourself 4 downs to do it every single time you move the chains. And so that's another thing. It's like you're putting the pressure on the defense for potentially a couple more snaps. Now, it sounds minimal, but late in the game and a lot of pressure, and you've been out there already for almost 60 minutes, guys tend to make mistakes. And so if you're playing just for the field goal, you get much more conservative. You're not going to go for it on 4th down if you're within field goal range. And so, yeah, you give yourself opportunities knowing that you've got a 4th down to go for it. And, we absolutely had to use that 4th down. And that was the biggest play of the game. I
really think the timing here is interesting, Ben, because as you know, the Falcons are coming to town. And it helps to crystallize lots of things when the Vikings' previous quarterback will be in that building, and obviously the current quarterback, Sam Darnold, will be in that building as well. One guy is signed for $10 million for 1 year, the other $180 million for 4, and yet look at the current condition of the 2 teams and the 2 QBs. Cousins has thrown in his last 3 games 6 interceptions and 0 touchdowns. Darnold in his last 3 has thrown 6 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. And I can't sit here and tell you that most of us could possibly have seen this coming. I didn't. I mean, we were talking about this with Johnny earlier, that you could make the argument that it was time to cut the cord with Cousins, that was a good and judicious football decision to make. But I think for most of us it was, well, realistically, he'll probably do okay there. I don't know if he'll lead him to a title, but he'll do pretty well. And meanwhile, Sam, all right, you got to have somebody there, probably have some good games, have some bad games, and yet here he is getting stronger as the season goes on here and making the kinds of plays that are winning plays, man, and winning throws that go well beyond just sort of, I'm just going to hand the ball off and do the little things that we could do. It's just fascinating to me how these stories play out and how often they play out very differently than what most of us expected.
Well, and let's go beyond the stats, and I think this is where I think one of the biggest differentiators are between the two styles of play is, we're talking about Sam Darnold in the way that he's been so clutch lately. Mm-hmm. And, maybe his stats aren't gaudy, but he's making plays when plays need to be made at the critical moments in each game. And how is he doing that? If you look at some of these games, it's using his legs.
Yes, it is.
It's his ability to escape the pocket and to extend plays, and whether he's got a dipsy-do and spin around to get out of something and be fleet-footed or run for 12 yards like he did yesterday and pick up a first down. That's the difference where what we didn't get out of Kirk. And I love Kirk as a quarterback, as a pure thrower and a passer. I mean, it's hard to find another quarterback that's as deadly, I think, with his accuracy and his arm strength in getting down the field. But, we were always, as Vikings fans, clamoring for him to just be more mobile, please.
Yeah.
You get late in the games and, of course they're going to pin their ears back. And of course you've got to get out of trouble. And, dang it, when you actually get pressured, you got to hold on to the football and not fumble that thing. I mean, those are the critical moments that define quarterbacks and certain players. And Sam is making those plays largely because of his awareness in the pocket, his ability to move around the pocket and use his legs to pick up first downs.
Much has been made about some comments that Sam made after the game regarding, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, the sound in front of me, but to the effect of, I wouldn't want to do this anyplace else but here. And, there are times where you hear comments like that and you go, oh, that's interesting. What kind of message? Is he trying to convey a message there? Or it could just be him talking. But what did you make of that?
Well, I think he's being honest about how people view Kevin O'Connell and the system and what he's building here. And, we saw it with Dobbs and we've seen it with Mullins, and you've heard it from all the college players, McCarthy and every guy in the draft said at some point in time they had a great time sitting down with Kevin O'Connell, and they all secretly wanted to get drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. And that was public knowledge. And you can't find a better ringing endorsement for a head coach, a system. The proof is in the pudding for what he's already done. What the organization. I mean, this is becoming a quarterback destination, and he understood that. He knew that, and he's like, look, if he has 8-10 more years left in his career, why not be the bridge quarterback that they're looking for? Get educated by Kevin O'Connell, and hopefully revitalize my career. It was smart, and a lot of credit to him for taking the coaching and figuring out what he was doing wrong or what he needed to work on. And he set himself up for probably a nice little 3-year contract with a new team. And he's going to make a lot of money as a starting quarterback as opposed to maybe being a journeyman backup. Ben
Leber joins us weekly, brought to you by Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. Who is the Sierra Nevada Hop Splash player of the game?
So a Hop Splash player of the game is somebody that I'm going to pluck from Kevin O'Connell's mouth, and that is Jalen Redmond. Huh? He talked about it in his presser this afternoon, and now I saw him make some plays in this game. Now, I did not see him make all of the hop splash type of plays where they just don't show up in the stat books, but it sounds like one of those things where, coach noticed, the defensive coaches noticed, and so therefore I am now put on notice. So I think that he deserves the award this week.
That's a good one. Yeah, I have no problems, no difficulty with that either. So the Atlanta is coming up this week. We know I think it's the Bears again after that, if I'm not mistaken. Certainly, would be favored in that game. Who knows what the Bears are going to be at that point, and they can be plucky, and they got the new coach, etc. But this thing is all seemingly headed, Ben Leber, to the possibility, and I don't want to rule out, the possibility that the Vikings could even, run the table and beat Detroit, but a good chance that they could go 14-3 this year, a remarkable record, and still have to go on the road in the first round of the playoffs. How squeamish should Vikings fans be about that?
I mean, a little squeamish, but not so much that you need to waste a lot of energy on it, because that's just the setup. That's the way it is. I don't like it. I don't think it's fair. I don't think the NFL is going to change it. They're certainly not going to change it in the next couple of weeks. So, unfortunately, maybe go cry in some other corner. I don't think the NFL is going to listen, and nobody's going to care. And if you really want to be a Super Bowl team and you feel like we have all the talent and the coaching, well, then go win a game on the road. We've already won a bunch of games on the road. So what makes you think that we can't go on the road? And let's just say, if it's Atlanta, then guess what? No elements. Tampa Bay, no elements. Seattle, yeah, maybe. I mean, we got to play there here in a couple of weeks, and we may have to face them again in the first round. That might be a little dicey when it comes to weather, but we could be playing Arizona again in the friendly confines of that indoor stadium. So you don't really have a lot going against you for much of those matchups when it comes to the environment. And this team knows how to win on the road, so I'm not too worried about it.
First and goal. The Arizona's got first and goal at the 5, and that's when all hell broke loose for them. They get the false start, and this is, I thought, again, an example of how clutch the defense is. He's a very difficult quarterback to bring down, and yet, when it mattered most in the game, what happened? They induced him into a throwaway that was obviously intentional grounding after the false start. And then, of course, later on the last drive of the game, they get the semi-strip sack, or at least the ball gets away from Kyler, and then he has to go down, and there's a big loss there. On the false start, I still need clarification, because it sure as hell looked to me like our guy was well across the line, and the offensive lineman reacted to that, which I thought, in the way the rules are set up today, is supposed to be encroachment. What did you see on that play? What did you hear?
I would not disagree with you. When I saw the replay up on the Jumbotron, and I was like, wait a minute, that looked like we moved first. And not only did we move first, it looked like we were in that neutral zone.
Yes.
And obviously they must have declared that, no, you moved, but you didn't necessarily go across the neutral zone. So I kind of thought the same thing. So
big call.
We got away with one there.
Yeah, because then it's half the distance. So now you're at the 2.5 yard line, with a good chance they're just going to try to run it in, and they did have some success running the ball as well. The part of, I think, what from an Arizona standpoint bothered a lot of people out there was the obvious, that it felt like they got more conservative as they got closer into the red zone. Even their decision late first half, where I thought they had a shot to clock it with about 10 seconds to go. I know they're out of timeouts, but do the old, it's Kyler Murray, 2-step drop, throw the ball into the end zone just to see if maybe you get somebody napping. It did feel like the closer they got, the more conservative they got.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everything is different in hindsight, but the thing is, like, we're a pretty good red zone defense too. So the whole mantra of the bend but don't break, I mean, like it or love it, I mean, that's just kind of what we are. And the whole idea is, if you're living up to that mantra, is you make it really, really hard for offenses when they're watching tape and they're like, okay, well, we know that there are some holes when we are in the field, but boy, they do some things and it gets really hard, and you cannot hold on to the ball too much when you get down to the end zone, especially the low red zone area. So I'm guessing that was the best plan that they had going forward based on what we put on tape. And thankfully we keep putting that on tape, because they were they were not as aggressive, and they thought that they had to change a little bit of their game plan. But I don't know if it was conservative. They certainly just couldn't do the things that they were doing in the field just because of the compressed area.
Should we be worried, or how worried should we be about Aaron Jones and the fumbles?
I mean, I think everybody has a right to be a little worried. I'm not that worried. I mean, I'm concerned a little bit, but not worried, because he should be able to figure it out. And the only thing is, he's not going to get a lot of live reps in practice. I mean, they're going to do a lot of drill work, and I know all that. And the worst part about this is, like, I don't want him to change his running style.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't need to be Mike Allstott, you know, 2 arms on the football, running to protect the football. And that's going to take away from his athleticism and his ability to cut, and his vision and all those special things that he has. So somehow he's going to find a way. I have full faith in that he's going to keep his running style and just keep that sucker a little bit tighter. And, you know, the first fumble, the very first play of the game, I didn't get a good look at it, but I know that on the reception, I think that it had a large part to do with just not catching the ball clean.
Yes, not clean.
And I think if he would just go back and say, like, the one thing I can clean up here, just catch the ball right the first time and then just tuck it away squarely.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And, of course, then he had Darnold made another great throw. The first touchdown, should have been touchdown pass to him as well. That was not an easy catch, but it's a catch I would think, you know, Jones has to make. We haven't gotten to the talking point yet, but I guess I need to apologize to Cam Akers, because I'm not saying he was, you know, like Walter Payton in his prime, but he had the longest run. This was also in the stretch where the Vikings are trying to come back from the 13-point deficit. He had a very nice 18-yard run, and he also had, on I think the longest throw to JJ, a very nice blitz pickup as well. So you know, nothing wrong with getting a little bit out of somebody else too.
No, and I think that's why, you know, they wanted to bring him back. And I mean, this guy has been through the ringer with all the injuries, but, you know, when he got brought back again, they just talked about his professionalism, his understanding of the offense, how dynamic he can be. And we've all seen it, but it is nice that is comforting to know when, you know, one guy is not feeling it and, you know, put the ball on the ground a couple times and, you know, he needs to go take a little bit of a timeout, that we don't lose too much. Now, early in the game when he was in there in place of Aaron Jones, it did seem like, and it's hard to confirm because I don't know the blocking schemes, it did look like maybe he missed a blitz pickup on an inside linebacker blitz. He certainly did not make that mistake again. He was nails the rest of the game when it came to blitz pickup. So if that was a mistake, he fixed it correctly and quickly, and it never was an issue. And, yeah, it was great to have that explosive run followed up by JJ. I think he went 18 yards as well, you know, soon after that. So we had a couple of explosive plays back-to-back.
Thanks, Leber. We will chat next week.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Mystic Lake tonight, 7 to 8 p.m. CJ Ham, you guys, is going to be there. That's going to be fun to chat with him. So Drinks Bar and Grill, or Drinks Bar right there in the middle of the casino floor. So see you guys then.
Have fun.
Thanks.
That is Nacho Leber. Come and see him tonight and listen to him with us after every Minnesota Vikings game. Next one, of course, is another Sunday noon start against number 18, Kirk Cousins, and the Atlanta Falcons. We are guest-free the rest of the way, right? I think we are. We've got more Vikings talking points to explore. I do want to hit the A section, an astonishing, but in many people's eyes, I guess, not all that in the end, surprising, ultimate Sirwanga by the current president of the United States. We'll find ways to squeeze that into our discussion today as well before we wrap things up at about 6. Arizona Cardinals were in position to knock off the purple. It was there for them. When you have a 1st and goal at the 5, and you know that a touchdown makes it a 2-score game, and there's not that much time left in the fourth quarter, is it impossible to score twice? No. But pretty good chance that game was going to be out of reach, and we would be talking about the end of a winning streak, and we probably would have been saying, well, they weren't going to win them all. I'm not sure I would have savaged the club. if you were there, you'd have booed them, apparently, off the field as they were booed off the field at halftime. But then what happened? Well, to a certain extent, you could give some credit to the Vikings defensively, but you could also say, well, that's something familiar about the way the Arizona Cardinals bungled their best chance to get a very good road victory.
Kyler Murray out of the shotgun, back to pass. It's a quickie left, caught. Trey McBride at the 5 on a chasing Cam Bynum. It's another first down for Arizona. That is the 25th first down for Arizona compared to 15 for the Vikings. 9-yard hit, first and goal from the 5.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we were trying to accomplish there as Cam Bynum he's a safety, not necessarily a corner. But we had nobody outside in the flat, and Bynum was looking at the quarterback. And just a speed out. It's just a quick throw. That's all they're doing is popping it up and throwing it quickly.
Arizona, the best goal-to-go offense in the NFL. First and goal from the 5. 0 of 1 today, simply because it was the end of the half, and they opted for a field goal. Flags on this play. Murray looks to throw right to Marvin Harrison Jr. Byron Murphy having some fun with the rookie. Flag came in early. It's first and goal from the 5 for Arizona. Here's Bill Vinovich.
False start.
Wow.
Offense number 87.
Sweet.
5-yard penalty. Go first down.
Tip Ryman's 4th penalty this game for the Rapid City, South Dakota rookie.
Versic knew it was
He's going to go solo alone in the backfield. 3 receivers left, 2 right. First and goal from the 10 for Arizona, leading by 3. Deep in the 12th game of the season for both teams. Trey McBride in motion to the right. Murray back to pass. Hasn't been sacked. He's going to throw out to the right.
There.
Incomplete.
There's no one there.
And
That's grounding. Thank you.
Potential grounding. Offense number 1. Spot foul. Lost it down. Took it out.
Handoff goes to Trey Benson. He heads to the right side across the 20, hit at the 18, stopped at the 17. It'll be a gain of 9 yards. So it's 3rd and goal from the 16. McBride, 11 catches, 83 yards. Don't sleep on him. Inside slot left. Murray, back to pass. He's going to throw short to McBride. Caught at the 15 to the 10. And he'll get to the 5. Then he stopped at the 4-yard line. 23-yard try left hash to the east side of U.S. Bank Stadium for Chad Ryland, who's made 4 field goals today from 5 tries. Aaron Brewer ships it back to Gillikin, the punter. And the kick is up, and the kick is good by Chad Ryland. 3:20 to go in the game. Arizona leads 22-16.
So the intentional grounding play, terrific defense. Good pressure. He had, as he rolled right, there wasn't anywhere for him to go with the ball at all. So he just unloads it, and there was no receiver in the vicinity. It was a very easy, maybe the easiest intentional grounding penalty that you'll ever see. So that, I give full credit to the Vikings defensively. I do think we got a break on the calls we talked about with Leber. I'll talk to Seifert about this tomorrow as well. But it looked very much to me as if that was encroachment, and that you literally could be suggesting that's the game, because then they get the ball at the 2.5. They've got some good runners, although I think their best runner, was he still out hurt at that point? Bottom line is they can run a little bit. They got some physicality to them, and you say, well, they might just be able to, pound the ball in that way. You got 4 chances if you want to. And then if you're then if you're at the 1, you aren't going to kick the field goal. I think you're going to try to end the game right there. On TV, there was a lot of discussion about going forward on what I guess was 4th and 4. Was it 4th and 5 or 4th and 4?
I think it was at the 4.
The 4-yard line. That's a lot of yards. I mean, that's that. But and in hindsight, it's easy to say go. Although there were people then saying go. I can't tell you that I was screaming at the TV when they kicked the field goal, because I'm saying, all right, yeah, it's 6s and 7. 6 means you could still lose the ball game. But I think the best reason to go probably is it does change the way the Vikings would have played, and they would have been starting even if you stop them from their 4-yard line.
My position consistently, going back to, I think it was Leslie Frazier that kicked a field goal to go up 6 against your guy, Jay Cutler, at Soldier Field, and ended up losing the game. Since that day, I don't know if I did it before, but since that day, I have 100% been on the field goal to take it from 3 to 6 with reasonable time left is worthless.
Yeah.
I know it's not 100% worthless, but in my mind, it's worthless, especially when you're that close. And I know sometimes you're forced to do it. Like if you get sacked and it's 4th and 15 and you're at the 22-yard line, you've got to kick the field goal there. Sometimes you're forced into it, but when people settle for it too easily and just go, we're going to kick it, we're going to go up 6. And I'm not saying that's what they did there, but to have a 4th and 4, to make them go 96 yards, and I know they don't have to go that far either.
For the field goal.
But you're backed up. They have already come back and made it a lot more tense than you maybe thought it was going to be just 20 minutes in real time earlier. I'm relieved if I'm the Vikings because you're getting the kickoff. Who knows what can happen on the return? Mm-hmm. It ends up being a touchback. But you get the fresh 4 at the 25, and then you go and you play. I'll never understand. I'm 100% Team Olsen on that. Why teams are so content to go for 6 there. It doesn't make any sense.
And I'll ask Seifert this tomorrow. I don't know what the analytics say. Do the analytics say it's a slam dunk that you go, or it's close, and there's really not necessarily a right answer or wrong answer? I'm not sure, but it was. I mean, in all honesty, you're if you're Arizona, you're going. You got to be kicking yourself. You're at the 5-yard line, first down, marching, and you can't find a way to close that deal. That's a to that extent. It's a bad loss because you've played well enough to that point to win, with the exception of that decision kind of fit their pattern where it did feel to me like there was another drive that ended in a field goal, and I don't know if this was one that was made or missed, where it was 3rd and fairly long and they ran and it didn't make much sense to me. And then you had, as I said, at the end of the half, they didn't make much of a deal of this on TV, but I didn't agree with it at all. If you can clock it with no timeouts at the wherever they were, was it the 5? With 10 seconds to go, 9 teams out of 10 are going to at least take one shot at the end zone.
I would.
And the idea, we're just going to run it down to 3 seconds and they're kick a field goal, that made absolutely zero sense to me. But to that extent, it's why it's hard to feel sorry for Arizona, because I think as well as they played at times, you could say well enough to beat a team that's red hot here. It's almost like, well, you don't really deserve to win.
They had a million penalties throughout the game, too.
You're afraid. It's the old deal of you feel like, it seems like you're kind of afraid to win. You have a good plan. Hell, they had, what would PA say, like 25 first downs in the game?
Yep.
Complete domination yardage-wise in the first half, but it was basically a one-score game, right? Less. So
because they settled for field goals.
Because they settled for as many field goals as they did.
And I think I heard they were one of the lowest penalized teams going into that game. They had 1 million penalties.
That's true. That
short-circuitered them a couple of times and made things more difficult in the first half when the Vikings were not finding themselves and obviously fumbling the ball all over the place.
Texture guy, I thought the cornerback, what's the name of the QB who came in for the veteran? It's in front of me, but we talked about it with Cam Bynum. Actually played okay. The one pass interference call over the middle I thought was very iffy. I think he's getting a bad rap a little bit from the couple penalties. That's from Wally. Here's my new position on PI. Given how many ticky-tack pass interference penalties that JJ gets every game, I don't want to hear any whining about any pass interference penalty. I'm with who did the TV play by
Olsen.
TV Olsen. Yeah. I'm with Olsen. I don't know how anybody plays defense anymore. And I've not been a big replay guy, as you know, but there's almost a part of me that says, pass interference should be replayable because there are so many calls that are, I think, pretty damned thin. And so I don't want it. The first of the two is it, what did we find? Moreau, yeah. The first of the two on him, it was closer, but he moved the body of the receiver. He jerked the receiver around a little bit, and anytime anybody breathes on JJ, he gets the call. And I'm not saying he doesn't. He's earned it. He's been great, whatever.
He faces more coverage than anybody.
That's what I hear. But I don't want to hear anything about, thin pass interference penalties because we get them all. We get a bunch of. I bet you we get more pass interference penalties than any receiving core in the league.
And
maybe we deserve
question
it.
for Seifert. No, I think the Hawkinson one was legit. The one where Olsen started talking about it.
Yes, it was. It was 100%.
That second angle that everybody saw.
Yeah, the first angle it was iffier, and they showed the second angle, then it looked better.
He grabs his he grabs his hand, and there you go.
But there's it's got to be the most thankless job in America. Maybe that's something we talk about next time we have Camp Bynum on. Bottom of the hour pause. We got more talking points to get to. We've got some A-section stuff to discuss as well. Monumental news that broke, I think, yesterday evening that, who knew? The President of the United States was going to, just for the hell of it, pardon his...
Find our street team outside U.S. Bank Stadium this Sunday before the Vikings take on Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. Ask how you can enter to win great prizes from our friends at Shields, including Vikings versus Packer tickets or $100 gift cards to Shields. All the details, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Last night, the President of the United States makes some news after having repeatedly said and having been repeatedly championed by a number of individuals on the left for taking this selfless, all-about-law stance. He's changed his mind. And he has announced a pardon for his son, Hunter, that is being described by some legal experts. Well, Margaret Love served from 1990 to 1997 as the U.S. pardon attorney. I've never seen language like this in a pardon document that purports to pardon offenses that have not apparently even been charged, with the exception of the Richard Nixon pardon. It's like, was it like an 11-year window that this is related to, or that this indeed covers? It's a bad look. We all know why it's done. We know it's not unprecedented. And we know that people tend to not be very consistent about when they're outraged about pardons and when they're not. I'm not interested in any of that crap because we don't play the Sharks and Jets game on this show. It's a bad look, a bad statement, and even outlets like the New York Times headline, "In pardoning his son, Biden echoes some of Trump's complaints." Biden's pardon will make it harder for Democrats to defend the integrity of the Justice Department and stand against Mr. Trump's unapologetic plans to use it for political purposes, even as he seeks to install Kash Patel, an advisor who has vowed to come after the president-elect's enemies, as the next director of the FBI. It'll also be harder for Democrats to criticize Mr. Trump for his prolific use of the pardon power to absolve friends and allies, some of whom could have been witnesses against him in previous investigations. They note also that there are plenty of accusations. Trump has contended that the two indictments against him by Biden's Justice Department amounted to a partisan witch hunt. Biden did not explicitly accuse the Justice Department of being biased against his family, but suggested that it was influenced by Republican politicians who have waged a long public campaign assailing Hunter Biden. As it happens, the Justice Department has rejected both accusations. The prosecutions of Mr. Trump and the younger Mr. Biden were each handled by separate special counsels appointed specifically to insulate the cases from politics, and senior department officials have denied that politics entered the equation against either man. We know politics can never be completely separated, but it is worth noting what we're even getting from the New York Times in this particular case. And the game is already being played that one would expect. Well, really? You're going to be outraged about this compared to what's going on the other side? I don't remember who wrote this, but I agree with this 100%. Anyone who has paid attention to how Biden world operates shouldn't be surprised by this, but I think why this is generating so much anger is the Democrats made, quote, honest guys defending institutions and law and order into their whole brand. People believed them, and now they feel duped. One last item, best column I've read on the subject, somebody named Noah Millman. I have no idea who he is, but he writes on Substack Under a headline, Biden gives up on America, the emotional subtext of the president's nepotistic pardon. He gets deep into history here. As Richard Harris's, he first says or writes, I completely understand why President Biden pardoned his son. He loves Hunter, wants to protect him, feels he has only been pursued by the law because of his connection to his famous and powerful father. Moreover, I'm sure he feels not only compassion but profound guilt over his son's transgressions, that they were in some sense caused by the fact that he was famous and powerful and thereby both cast a shadow that his son could not escape from behind and provided a temptation that his son was too weak to resist. As Richard Harris's Marcus Aurelius said to his own son, your faults as a son is my failure as a father. Even grammatical mistake sounds Biden-esque, he writes. But that speech from Ridley Scott's Gladiator comes in the context of the Roman emperor telling his son that he will not be his heir, that he will be denying him the thing he wants most. Scott's version of Marcus Aurelius chooses his country over his family, and he pays for the choice by being murdered by his own son. Biden, writes Noah Millman, made the opposite choice. He broke an explicit campaign promise not to pardon his son. He exonerated his son not only from the kind of wrongdoing that probably would not have been pursued against any other malefactor, but the kind of wrongdoing that absolutely should be. He has accused his own Justice Department of trying to break his son in order to break him, thereby dignifying his successor's routine trafficking in conspiracy theories anchored in self-pity. He not only said so, they not only said in so many words that there's nothing wrong with trying to peddle political influence for profit, since so long as you fail, you haven't broken the law, but by issuing a blanket pardon for any crimes that may have been committed during an 11-year period, has effectively demanded that the public simply trust that there are no consequential crimes yet to be discovered. And he could take this action only because he himself was immunized from prosecution by the Supreme Court, a decision decried by liberals for putting the president above the law and thereby vastly increasing the likelihood that the presidency's power will be abused for personal interest. Oh, the irony. The first beneficiaries of Trump versus U.S. are Hunter and Joe Biden. He thinks to a large extent that, Trump's going to abuse the power anyway, so sort of what's the difference? Mm-hmm. We're in a new world, and you can't expect one side to behave ethically when the other side laughs at that very idea. We couldn't beat them, so we might as well join them. I think the Hunter Biden pardon is in itself an expression of that kind of feeling of, on the president's part, well, maybe the same kind of feeling that animates comments of his to reporters like, do you think you can get hit in the head by the camera behind you? It's a feeling of contempt, of disdain for those who believe they can judge or question the president when their own judgment is so manifestly inept. Normally, even if he wouldn't face political consequences himself because of term limits, the president might feel constrained from doing something like issuing a blanket pardon for his son because of the negative political impact on his party or on how his own legacy would be perceived. But Biden no longer cares what happens to his party or what the people think of him. Why? Because he thinks they failed him. John Gans is right that this pardon sets a clear precedent for Trump to do much worse. And he's also right that standing on norms is genuinely difficult when the other side violates them with impunity, since it gives the other side an important tactical advantage. But that's not what strikes me as most important about it. This wasn't the president breaking a norm for policy reasons or even for political reasons, playing hardball so as to win. This wasn't hashtag resistance, and it wasn't defiance, and it really wasn't creative collaboration. This was the president taking his marbles and going home. Very well put, I thought, on a number of fronts. And as I said, the game is, you've heard it, I mean, it's already being played, the tit for tat, the whataboutism, how can you be upset? But again, the box Biden put himself in, regardless of what you think about the charges here and political motivation being a part of it, the box that the president put himself in, and I think to a certain extent the party put itself in, is they said, we're different. We don't play these games. We're not going to do it. We believe in law and order. Somebody has come up with, it's remarkable. It's 9 minutes of video of commentator after commentator praising Joe Biden. Said, you want to know the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump? This is it. The president has pledged over and over and over, and he says this is unchangeable, that he will not pardon his son. And that's the dividing line. 9 minutes of people supporting and praising and saying that's why he deserves to be president of the United States, and the guy who's coming back into office does not deserve the job. We can continue to discuss that latter half of it, but if you put yourself up on that pedestal over and over again and then expose yourself for being frauds, you deserve, to me, to get nothing but ripped. No matter what this new administration has in mind, and we've talked about how frightening a number of the ideas are, and a number of the people who the president's trying to put in his cabinet. There's plenty of time for that discussion. There will continue to be time for that discussion. But it's not just the pardon. Like I said, it's the unprecedented, going back to Nixon, scope of this thing. Well, we got a lot of ground to cover. It almost seems to indicate, God, there may be a couple of deals that I made over there that might be a little shaky, where maybe I did drop your name more than I should have, and I might have put some pressure on when I really didn't even have the power to do it. Do you, in all honesty, if you're a shark or a jet, do you understand why the people who don't want to identify as either, why this sickens them, why they say, they just smile and they go, well, this is it in a nutshell. This is why we can't trust any of you or believe in any of you, because this is the game, the way it's played. And there are people who said, guess what? On the gun charges, there are a lot of people you'd say maybe are not worthy of the charges any more than Hunter Biden was. They don't have a shot like this, though. They're not part of the elite. They're not part of the beautiful people. And so this is why, to me, again, blood's thicker than water. Maybe it was inevitable. Maybe you can never expect a father to do anything, even the president of the United States, to do anything but what he did for his son here. But there are ramifications for it. And the criticism he is getting, I am 100% behind. I 100% agree with across the board. It's a terrible look for him. And it's get off your high horse is the message that has to be delivered to the Democrats, who've been, like I said, basically arousing themselves for months and months, because they say, you want to bring the dividing line to a single essence? This is it. Our guy may feel that his son is being railroaded here, and this has been politicized, but he has so much respect for the law, and he does not want to intercede for that law. He's not going to touch this thing. Guess what he did? He not only touched it, he apparently set up or crafted, with the help of lawyers, an unprecedented pardon that ensures pretty much that no matter what might have been out there, there's no chance that Hunter Biden is ever going to be prosecuted for any of it.
I'm sure it's very frustrating for the lefties that a guy who literally does nothing but lie and has gotten away with literally everything and will continue to. We just saw last week or the week before that whatever sentencing he was going to have to deal with for the 34 felony counts
Correct.
is now completely off the table.
Yes.
I'm sure that is extremely frustrating.
It should be.
And infuriating. And to me, it actually is. But if you're going to go Denny Green and say, look for me on the high road, you better be on the high road. And we've said this before. If you're going to play the high road card, you have to. And again, I'm sure it doesn't make you feel good. And you just read this from something where I'm sure when you look on the other side and go, well, that doesn't matter. They get to do whatever they want and face no ramifications. I don't want to play fair. That's all fine, too. But then you can't say this is the way we're going to do it. And there are a lot of quotes from the press secretary as well, over and over again, saying the answer continues to be no. And every time you ask me, we will continue to say no on this. We've been very clear about this over and over and over.
And we'll have pep rallies extolling the virtue of taking that point of view. That's the thing. It's so utterly cynical and fraudulent to say, well, he doesn't know what's coming. And, look at the guys who are coming in here. All of that is true. All of that was going to be true. But you have surrendered any sort of notion about high road or being up on a different plateau. We don't play that game the same way. You've lowered yourself. You're in the muck. You're in the slime. We can, if you want, distinguish levels of slime. And believe me, we'll be doing plenty of that over the course of the next 4 years. But that's faint praise at this particular point. That's what I would say. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open, 646-86.
I bet that just got it restarted.
Yeah, it probably did, but it's okay. It's all right. The best one was I can't remember the name of the individual. Speaking of duplicitous, somebody from the right had a tweet saying, well, I guess Hunter Biden, what's the moral of the story? He's above the law with the help of the president. And the individual who made that declaration has already been pardoned by Donald J. Trump on something else.
So good.
And you at least have to have some awareness.
No, but they don't get.
But there is no awareness. No. It doesn't make any difference, and that's why this whole thing is so absolutely on the absurd side.
What was the Edina Privilege tweet from 3 hours ago? Do you
left early because you're in the beautiful people and classification. Therefore, that's the only reason you could have left early, and it showed your lack of commitment other than to sort of want to be there. I think, if I'm convinced.
I think that's fact versus fiction. I would go against that. I'm going tonight. I plan on staying the whole game tonight. But when you have a 6-year-old daughter who really can't, hang past halftime very often, I was proud we got to the fourth quarter, and our last memory of the game was seeing the Wolves up by 12.
Yeah.
And playing great. So we had an awesome time, and then had to listen to poor Alan Horton describe the last 6 or 7 minutes of the game when the Wolves, I think, got outscored like 25-4 against Sacramento. I'm pretty sure.
It was not good.
Yeah.
It did not go well.
So we had a great time.
But
the place was on fire.
Well, in your case,
and then we left.
Well, the excuse you have is you got like eight children.
Yeah, and one of them was getting tired.
Yeah, so I think that needs to be. But I don't think that fairness has anything to do with pretty much.
I'll take the Edina slings and arrows. That's fine.
You have.
I've had them my whole life. I can handle it.
952 guy, get off the high horse. Nobody other than the right cares about this. He's protecting his son from the MAGA cult. Once again, the Dems always have to take the high road while we run her over by these idiots on the other side. Similar. Hold on a second. And move down. Yeah, they are coming in pretty fast.
I will agree.
Now.
Things stick to the left more than they tend to.
Similar with how we had to treat Senator Franken compared to the cesspools of GOP congressmen. You have, I'd say respectfully to 952 guy, don't blame Republicans for that. Blame Democrats for that. Many of them have now since said that there was no due process allowed on Al Franken. Do you know why? Because too many Democrats in the Me Too era have basically decided due process be damned. That's not the fault of the Republicans. Some of this has to be the ability for people. You just lost another significant election. We've had these conversations before, on the basis of these texts from the lefties, they still don't get it. There's no ability to look in the mirror and say, we can just, disassociate ourselves from half the country and say they're all idiots and they're all racists and they're all xenophobes. You ain't going to win that way. And it would suggest a lack of accountability to occasionally look in the mirror on your side regardless. You can do the martyr role. Golly, boy, it just seems like it's so hard for us. There's nothing to excuse what Joe Biden, for me, other than father-son, what he did. Again, you've made your own bed. That's what I would say to 952 guy. If you have gotten aroused by pounding your fist on your chest and saying, we're different. We are different. We're not going to get down in that slime. So when our president says, I'm not going to go the pardon route, and says it repeatedly, has his press secretary say it week after week after week. Minions and stooges and lickspittles say it over and over again. Sorry, that's not the Republicans' fault. None of this. I don't know how much more clearly anybody who listens to this show can understand it, but they should by now. None of this is in any way, shape, or form an endorsement for the man who is going to be president of the United States in late January, or what might be coming. But I'm not gonna play this game of, well, we're not going to criticize them because what they do is worse. This is what happened last night. A sitting president of the United States did something that he said over and over again he wasn't going to do. Own it. I mean, you can't just write that off and pretend that's the fault of other individuals. You have to own it, or you have to stop pretending that you're on any kind of significantly higher road when experts, and we're not talking about people who analyze for Fox News, are saying this is the most preposterous pardon we've seen, maybe ever, in government, because of the open-ended nature of it and the amount of time that it indeed covers. So please, spare me the lectures about what's going on the right. We know what's going on. We talk about it incessantly, week after week after week. That's not the story today. Own it, eat it, don't run away from it by blaming somebody else. It's not somebody else's problem. It is your problem.
Get ready, Minnesota. The Goo Goo Dolls are bringing their electrifying energy to the Ledge Amphitheater on August 18th. Don't miss your chance to experience the magic live. Full show details now at KFAN.com, keyword calendar, KFAN.com, keyword calendar. The show wrap brought to you as always by American Pressure, commercial grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the bumper to bumper show wrap.
You know what? When we needed to get to that elusive quarterback, what's his name? Kyler Murray?
Yep.
Did we? Well, let's listen.
Cardinals have 3 timeouts. They're letting this clock run. Weird. 58, 57, 56. It's 23-22 Minnesota. Murray on second down. Hasn't been sacked yet. He dropped the ball, and he falls on it back at the 27. They discombobulated Kyler. 48 seconds to go in the game. Timeout, Arizona. It'll be third and right around 14.
And that's Jonathan Grenard, Paul. We haven't, I don't think, said his name all day. But he gets around Paris Johnson with the speed move and is able to knock the ball out of the hands of Kyler Murray. So that's going to be a sack.
Yeah, for
Jonathan Grenard. That'll for Grenard.
It was?
Yeah, Grenard gets him right with that left hand. The ball came, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that was just a straight-up fumble. I don't know. But you're right. If it's ruled just a straight-up fumble, then Van Ginkel will get the sack. Either way, for either of them, it puts them at 10.
Right.
And they ended up with an interception. Was it fourth down? But right there, that put them way behind the chains, discombobulated them, and was a good example because I think Murray might have just dropped it, but part of it was Grenard coming around, hassling him.
Yep.
He's bringing the ball down, loses control of it. So even though, I don't know if that was technically ruled a sack or not, it was close enough at the most important time of the game. And it pretty much changed everything and took away the Cardinals' best chance because the clock's running. Well, they had timeouts.
Yep.
But the fact is that it put them in a third and long situation from which they were never able to recover.
They did give Grenard a sack on that play. And, you don't need to overblow everything that KOC does, even though, he is our Heavenly Father. We haven't called him that since 2022. Is it time to bring our Heavenly Father back, by the way?
It might be.
I think we might have to.
That's not a bad idea.
Play the music.
Yeah.
I know people really like that. But calling the timeout to get Grenard back into the game after that, I thought was a nice little sneaky touch. Now, you can say, well, you give them a timeout to get themselves organized, but also it's the last play of the game. Get your guys out there. You'd rather let Kyler Murray draw something up or those guys draw something up and have the team you want out there and take the chance than let them catch you with something because Grenard was catching his breath.
I didn't ask. I meant to ask Leber about this. So when Harrison Smith left, it wasn't that he was hurt. I'm reading, I think in one of the Star Tribune stories, that it was almost like a load management situation.
That's interesting.
A planned, I don't know how many plays he was out, but I want to say it was 6 or 7 maybe, but I'm guessing. But I'd like to get maybe Kevin Seifert, who's going to join us from Shields for our Toys for Tots event tomorrow in Eden Prairie, get his view on exactly, is that a new thing with Harrison? Have we been doing that and I haven't been paying attention? So I don't remember him being off the field all that much. Maybe we can ask Josh Metellus because he's going to join us from the Toys for Tots event as well. He'll be our Viking representative. Louis will join, not from there, but I think more likely by the telephone. I wish I could give each of these individuals a big smooch. And symbolically, I guess I am. The number of texts I have that say Trump lies every day. And that's where we're lost for me. We live in a culture in which, again, you are forced to take sides. And there's an inability to say, well, today I'm going to criticize your side, not because I'm going out of my way to do it, but because I think your side is worthy of criticism. There's going to be plenty of time before, and has been, and tomorrow and the day after that, to add a lot more context to it. But I'm going to judge on the basis of what we've been told regarding this pledge and what happened, and according to legal analysts, the unprecedented nature of this agreement that is worthy of discussion, period. But we live in that world where, yeah, but what about over there? We get there. Most days we get there. In fact, according to the righties, we get there too often because I'm still hearing from them too. But if you can't, for me at least, this is the way I look at it, if you can't objectively try to be objective enough to analyze a specific move simply because their side does worse more often, then on that basis, you'll just yawn through anything, including the president going back on an ongoing pledge in this case that he was not going to do what he did in this particular case. And I don't know what that gets us. It's almost like, well, if I do that, I'm conceding too much to the other side. You don't have to concede anything to the other side. In fact, you could say, well, we don't want to be like them. Even if this is them light, we don't want to be like them. So therefore, I'm going to call it out when we're too much like them, especially when we spend so much time, and this is the hypocrisy part, trying to tell people that we're different. We wouldn't stoop to that. And I'm so proud of my president because no matter how badly his son is being railroaded, he has said, I've worked in this government a long time and I'm going to respect the law. I may not like the outcome. I may not appreciate the outcome, but I'm not going to get in the middle of it. I'm going to respect the law. And when at the last moment you decide to do something different, sorry, I'm going to criticize it. It's what I've said. And I haven't heard anything about what if Bill Maher had said anything about any of it. But that's what I appreciate about Maher. And the hazard of doing it the way Maher likes to do it is, on a given occasion, he's got, well, you've betrayed your party. You've been a person of the left through most of your career, and you've betrayed them. He hasn't betrayed anything. All he has done, or has attempted to do, I think, is to say, here's what I see in front of me right now. And again, there are plenty of lefties, actually, who are writing critical things about this particular decision. Will it be forgotten in a few weeks? Of course. There'll be other crises. There'll be other things to go on to. And
next train's coming down the tracks.
There's no question about that. But, it's so trite to say we need a third party. I don't even know if a third party would help because I'm not sure in the end, once that party would get more entrenched and invested, that they'd be any more capable of the others of not simply making it about a party. But what we could use, and I think this is where a lot of people in the country are, is folks who are just able to call things out as they see them and are not afraid to call out their own party when they see something that, no, it doesn't. It's a bad look. And for me, I'm certainly not the last word, but for me, this is indeed a very bad look. Wolves-Lakers, will that be a bad look tonight? That's coming up on The Fan. Here's the plan this evening. We're out early. You're about to hear the music. Now you do. Vikings Rewind will take one more look back at an exciting finish for your Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold. And then after that, it will be Wolves-Lakers with Horton on the call right here on FM 100.3, The Fan.
No D-Lo tonight. Oh, no, D-Lo's coming back.
He is back. Well, that was the Johnny prediction.
Yep.
Because D-Lo was sick, quote, last night, And so the feeling was, no, he wants to. He's not Jimmy Butlering it.
Yeah.
He wants to be out here playing.
No dilly for us.
And no dilly for us. Yeah, he's been ruled out. I think an ankle issue.
AD will play.
Hell yeah, I play. How about LeBron?
LeBron
Did you
will play.
see the plus minus that LeBron's is awful and D'Lo's is great?
It's unbelievable.
Which tells me that we need a new system. Don't you think? I'm not sure that's very
LeBron's
accurate.
playing too much.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope the lefties and the righties, the Sharks and the Jets, both come back tomorrow. We'll start it all over again at 3 o'clock.
Go get them, Dylan. Show us what you can do.
Knew just what to say.